My first experience making glass. In college, blown from melted 7-Up bottles. Primitive, full of flaws. But I was hooked. This is what I had to do. But a way to make a living? Are we joking here? I needed to find something less chancy, but still creative. All my life, I had sketched, doodled, scribbled, drawn funny figures. So I would become a cartoonist. I would cash in. I would get onto the fast track of fame and fortune. Sure. Jack Davis of Mad Magazine took a look at my early work and said, "Your drawing is so bad, it's almost funny." Gradually, my drawing improved. I acquired some technique. And within the discipline of technique, I began to experience a freedom, the ability to be me as an artist. I found I could let all the spontaneity, all the craziness within me come out in a cartoon. Social commentary? Maybe, but mostly my own vision of my own world. Some people say that the bull in this watercolor is better art than the man. And against all odds, I began to make money with my cartoons. Newspapers and magazines began to use my work. I was actually making a living, an amazingly good living as a cartoonist. And my wife Elizabeth came up with the idea for this one. People began to recognize my work and even my name. And then the big time, a New Yorker cartoon. Every cartoonist's dream. People finally had a way to introduce me at parties. This is my friend David Jacobson, the New Yorker cartoonist. And even here in Maine, people began to chuckle. In that quiet Maine sort of way, down east style, I guess you'd call it. But around this time, pretty decent art, I think. But around this time, midlife crisis began to raise its inevitable head, and success as a cartoonist just wasn't enough. That first 7-Up bottle piece from college still haunted me. I took some graduate work in glass blowing, and I learned some technique. This piece is all technique, classic 16th century Venetian style technique. It's complex, it's tricky, satisfying to know that I could make it, but there's nothing of me in it. But there was an elation. There was a primal surge that happened to me in front of the glass furnace, something that rarely happened at the drawing board. My first love still called to me. And there are many times when I'm driving home after a day at the studio, the glass studio, when I feel like the luckiest man alive. And it's a nice feeling. And slowly, gradually, I found that out of the discipline, the classic forms, and the technique, like this labor-intensive Italian Marini piece, I could find a way for my own freedom, my own spontaneous vision to come through. I could put me into the work. Sometimes that freedom, that spontaneity came very simply, like in the loose, free-form edge of this bowl, made by taking red and black stripes of glass in 2 layers and then fusing them in contrasting angles. And the effect of lightness comes from the air bubbles that are trapped in the fusing process. And sometimes that freedom shows up in the juxtaposition of colors, in a playful or even dramatic fashion. Actually, on this day, I was a little short of material. So going against my own traditional values, I combined the glass cane stripes with a Marini design, and I like what came out of this improvisation. Or it might be in the adaptation of an Italian Renaissance technique called reticello, into a shape that floats with an almost Zen-like impact. And sometimes unplanned surprises show up in the heating process, like the spaces between the stripes, between the canes, that in this case seems to enhance the lightness. Okay, this is where I start. A circle on a piece of paper, some glass, some tools, maybe an idea lurking in my brain, or maybe just in my hands. Those chunks are rods of glass that are bundled and wrapped, fused, and then heated into 8-foot lengths, and then I pull them, and then they're cut after cooling. Here the process is continuing. I got colors, patterns, something germinating, maybe a feeling emerging. I move the chunks around. I make substitutions. I'm always trying to create some tension, some movement, some vitality in the composition. Find what works for me. And now we have an object. Like tradition, technique, and discipline have been brought into the oven, and something has come out that is uniquely mine. I love this piece. But I'm never totally satisfied. As soon as I finished it, I couldn't wait to start the next one. But of course, as always, we do have to keep the wolf from the door, and grants and scholarships won't always do that. One has to find galleries to show your art, critics who will appreciate it, museums who will add it to their collections, and of course, people who will pay to own it. So the thought came to marry these two unlikely fields, glassmaking and cartooning, because each one of you has a cartoon or two showing up in your own human comedy now and then. And the weekly contest in the New Yorker shows that we all like to write captions. So, an empty glass word balloon and a marker. Go to it. And maybe enough of you will buy these glass balloons and write stuff on them, so that other people will want to buy them. Maybe Neiman Marcus or the Home Shopping Network will feature them. Start a whole tidal wave of buying, so I can afford to keep doing what I love to do, which is, of course, to keep making stuff like this last slide. And yes, I'll keep drawing cartoons, because it's been fun and it's been good to me. And is there comedy in glassmaking? Sure. The stuff breaks all the time when you least expect it to. But when it all comes together and stays together, that's why I'm here. I live for this.